Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The last thing Captain Dorian Thorne remembered before his ship fell out of the sky was the smell of burnt cinnamon. That, and the fact that he had very explicitly requested not to be sent to any star system with a classified gravitational anomaly, especially not one named Yelvereth. Something about planets named with apostrophes screamed, "Here be dragons," or at least orbital instability and things with more limbs than ethics. He came to with a start, lungs sucking in jungle-thick air, his head ringing like a broken klaxon. His helmet was gone, his comm unit was fried, and his leg, well, his leg felt like it had tried to make friends with a fusion core and lost. He groaned. Loudly. Mournfully. Like a professional. Something sharp jabbed his ribs. Stop making noises like a wounded bork beast. You're not impressing anyone. The voice was female. Stern. And not human. Dorian turned his head with the kind of delicacy reserved for disarming minds. A tall figure crouched beside him, her skin a shade of iridescent gray-green, eyes glowing faintly violet. Kiri. Oh. Good. He was going to die with a spectacular view. Just get it over with, he muttered. Kill me. Harvest my teeth for trophies. I hear that's popular. The woman blinked. Why would I want your teeth? They're so small. They're proportionate, he snapped. And very clean, thank you. She looked unimpressed. I dragged your heavy corpse out of the wreckage, you know, she added, gesturing vaguely behind her where the smoking remains of his scout ship still glowed like a disgraced meteorite. You're welcome. Wait, you pulled me out. Yes. Why? She tilted her head, then shrugged. I needed the heat signature to attract the swarm wasps away from my garden. Your ship had excellent combustion. Dorian blinked. Then winced as his leg reminded him of its traumatic divorce from his pelvis. Well, thank you for saving me and emotionally wounding me in the same sentence. She handed him a root. It was vaguely carrot-shaped, faintly pulsing with bioluminescence, and absolutely not food by any Earth standard. Eat, she said. Eat this. It won't kill you. Much. He stared at her. She stared back. He bit it. It tasted like licorice and battery acid. He gagged. She looked delighted. Ah. You humans really are that fragile. They made camp in a cave tucked under the base of a tree the size of a small moon. The jungle outside hissed and glowed with nocturnal menace, the kind of place that would be featured in galactic brochures under the heading asterisk, "Do not touch anything." Asterisk. Dorian sat propped against the wall with makeshift splints binding his leg, swatting at what he prayed were harmless bugs and trying not to panic. So, you're a deserter, he asked, mostly for the sake of conversation. I prefer independent contractor without genocidal intent. Catchy. I thought so. She was polishing a blade the length of his torso with a cloth that may or may not have once been clothing. Her movements were methodical, almost meditative. You have a name? She nodded. Are you going to tell me what it is? She glanced over, lips twitching. Valera. He repeated it carefully, then nodded. Dorian. Or Captain, if you're feeling formal. Or, Your Wounded Highness if you're feeling sarcastic. I am always sarcastic. Excellent. This will go well. The rain began halfway through the night. Not just water, green, glowing droplets that sizzled when they hit stone. Dorian stared, wide-eyed. Is that acidic? No. Just mildly neurotoxic. Mildly? It only causes hallucinations if you ingest it directly or breathe it for more than 10 hours. Comforting. You're welcome. She had made them a stew using local fungi, some kind of worm-like protein, and what Dorian strongly suspected was rehydrated moss. It was terrible. He ate 2 bowls. You cook like a military ration pack. Tried to fight back. Your insults are uncreative. I'm injured. And whiny. They talked long into the night, about space battles, lost missions, the way the stars looked from opposite ends of war. She told him of the Queen Mothers and their silent courts, of blood rites and desert winds, of how it felt to be bred for purpose and punished for thought. He listened, quiet for once. Not because he had nothing to say, but because for the first time in a long while, someone wasn't pretending the war had meaning. She caught him staring once and raised a brow. Do I have something on my face? No. I just wasn't expecting this. This? You. Not killing me. Feeding me. Making fun of my dental hygiene. Her expression softened a hair. I wasn't expecting you, either. Most Terrans scream when they see me. I would, but I'm trying to impress you. You're failing. I like to keep expectations low. There was a rustle outside. Something large passing through the underbrush. Dorian tensed, reaching for the plasma pistol that no longer existed. Valera didn't move. Relax. That's just a bone eel. Asterisk just asteriska, what now? Big teeth. Sensitive to fear. I am afraid. Yes. That's why it's coming closer. He turned white. She laughed. Eventually, the beast passed, uninterested or confused by the aroma of unwashed human. Valera glanced at him, clearly enjoying herself. See? You're not entirely useless. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all year. You should make better friends. I think I just did. She didn't respond, but her gaze lingered on him longer than necessary. Somewhere above, a satellite spun silently. Below, under glowing vines and acidic rain, a human and an alien shared a fire neither one knew they needed. They didn't trust each other. Not yet. But they weren't enemies, either. And sometimes, that was how the best revolutions began. The sun. Or what passed for a sun on Yelvereth, rose reluctantly, casting a queasy amber light over the jungle as if the planet itself were hung over from too much radiation. Dorian sat on a flat rock, one boot off, poking at the remains of his injured leg with the tender skepticism of a man who'd once failed high school biology and now regretted it daily. You know, he said, glancing over at Valera, on Earth, we have this thing called medicine. Sometimes it involves people with degrees and clean gloves. Not root paste and threats. Valera didn't look up from the spiny plant she was shaving with a curved blade that looked like it had stabbed at least 3 generals and a god. On Kier, we have this thing called adaptation. It involves survival. And no whining. That sounds awful. When do you get pudding? She rolled her eyes in a way that felt oddly human, then tossed him a strip of dried meat. He sniffed it. It sniffed back. You're feeding me sentient jerky now. It was only sentient for about 5 minutes. That barely counts. He chewed warily, and tried not to imagine the meat's last words. They broke camp with a series of grunts, groans, and one brief negotiation over whose turn it was to carry the emergency signal module. Dorian lost, mostly because Valera suggested they solve it with a contest involving the bone eel mating dance, and he didn't want to find out what that meant. The jungle was denser today, pulsing with faint bioluminescence and the scent of citrus gone very wrong. Valera moved like she was made of shadow and muscle. Dorian moved like a man trying not to die on a vine. So, he said after tripping over a glowing root for the 3rd time, tell me more about your illustrious warrior past. Did it always involve dragging useless men through alien forests? Only the ones who deserved it. Touché. They reached a ridge by midday. Below them, nestled in a basin of red-leaf trees and slinking fog, was what Dorian could only describe as a ship graveyard. Twisted husks of old fighters, burnt-out cargo runners, Even a shattered Terran scout vessel lay tangled together like corpses in a mechanical boneyard. Valera narrowed her eyes. This is new. That's a sentence that should always be followed by a retreat, not a descent. She ignored him and started down the slope. Of course, Dorian muttered, following. We never listened to the guy with the limp and the healthy fear of cursed landscapes. They moved carefully, stepping over twisted hull plating and melted cockpit glass. Some of the wrecks were ancient, their insignias half buried under moss. Others were disturbingly recent. Dorian ran a hand along the side of one Terran vessel. It still had scorch marks from plasma fire. These weren't shot down. They landed. Or were lured, Valera said, frowning. This isn't debris from orbit. It's a pattern. Wonderful. We've stumbled into a planetary version of a haunted house. What's next? Possessed flight manuals. There was a sound then, a faint hiss, almost like static. They froze. The hiss grew louder, layered with occasional clicks. Dorian raised a brow. Do you hear that? Valera nodded slowly. That's a signal. Modulated. Dorian turned on the emergency module, cycling its scanner through wavelengths until... There. A pattern. A faint beacon pulse. That's Terran military code. But it's scrambled. Like someone tried to mimic it but didn't quite know how. Valera's expression darkened. Or like someone wanted us to come. At that moment, a small crab-like drone skittered out from under a shuttle wing and latched onto Dorian's boot with a mechanical click. He screamed. Valera lunged. The drone exploded in a puff of blue vapor. A moment of stunned silence passed. Dorian looked down at his boot, now crusted in nanite ash. That was a greeting. Valera poked the remains with her blade. Possibly. Or a warning. I liked it better when my biggest problem was your cooking. They retreated from the graveyard with more haste than grace. Valera's eyes scanned the trees, the sky, the broken machines behind them. They weren't random, she muttered. All those wrecks, Kiri, Terran, civilian. Someone's collecting them. Dorian nodded. Yeah. Which is horrifying, obviously. But I'd also like to point out, your people and mine both vanished here. Meaning? Meaning, maybe the war's not what we think it is. Maybe it's a distraction. A convenient excuse for ships to disappear into someone's salvage museum. She didn't reply. Which was, for Valera, equivalent to deep concern. They made camp in a moss-glowing clearing, lighting a small ion field to keep out local wildlife and metaphorical ghosts. Valera sat sharpening a blade she hadn't used in years. Dorian sat watching her, the flickering light painting half his face in shadow. You still dream of it? He asked suddenly. The war. Not the battles, she said. Just the aftermath. The choices. The ones I couldn't take back. Same. A long pause. I used to believe in it, she said, voice softer than usual. Honor. Service. All of it. Until I was ordered to burn a moon because it was strategically inconvenient. Dorian didn't speak. He knew the story. His people had reported the massacre. Her name had been in the debrief. But sitting across from her now, all he saw was the exhaustion behind her eyes and the blade she hadn't used on him. You're not that person anymore, he said. You don't know that. I'm choosing to believe it. That's stupid. Very. A rustle in the trees. Then a glowing orb drifted into view, metallic, spherical, humming faintly. It scanned them both, chirped, then projected a hologram. It was Valera. A younger version, armor-polished, face like stone. All Terran assets are to be neutralized with precision. No survivors. No deviation. The message cut off. Dorian looked at her slowly. Well, he said. That was festive. Valera stared at the orb as it fell silent. They're still using my image to issue kill orders. Do you feel flattered or horrified? I feel like stabbing something. Great. Let's start with dinner. She didn't smile. Not exactly. But her shoulders dropped by half an inch, which was practically euphoric by her standards. They ate in silence, occasionally swatting away glowing insects that looked suspiciously sarcastic. Later, Dorian leaned back on his elbows, staring at a sky that shimmered with unfamiliar constellations. Still think humans are a disease? He asked. Valera hesitated. No, she said finally. Some of you are just infections with good conversation. I'll take it. You would. He drifted off to sleep thinking about lost ships, hollow transmissions, and alien women who didn't kill him when they had the chance. Valera remained awake long after, listening to the static whisper of stars not nearly as silent as they seemed. It started with soup. Which, as far as Dorian was concerned, was how most interspecies misunderstandings should start, preferably with something warm and edible, not laser fire and declarations of mutual disgust. Unfortunately, this soup smelled like sulfur and looked like it had personal opinions. Is it supposed to bubble like that? He asked, watching the viscous green mixture rotate slowly in the pot like it was contemplating revolution. Valera gave him a withering look. That means it's ripe. Ripe is not a word I enjoy near food. Also, pretty sure it just hissed at me. She stirred the pot with the casual confidence of someone raised on lethal root vegetables. A faint crackle echoed from the fire beneath. The smell intensified. Dorian gagged gently. What's in it? Mica root. Voss fungus. Ground shriek beetle. Salt. You had me at beetle. Lost me forever at ground. Despite everything, he ate it. Because it was that or more ration bars, and after 2 weeks, those tasted like regret and cardboard's less ambitious cousin. They sat cross-legged on moss that glowed faintly in the dark, their makeshift camp nestled between 2 massive trees whose trunks pulsed with slow bioluminescence. Valera had set up sonic perimeter fields, and Dorian had contributed a half-functional proximity alarm shaped like a duck. She still hadn't asked why. He appreciated that. Between bites and wincing, he asked, so. When did you stop believing in the war? She chewed a piece of fungus with deliberate slowness. The day I was told to kill a mother who had already surrendered. She was holding a child. I looked at them, then at my commander, and realized I didn't know which one I hated more. Dorian swallowed hard, not the soup, but the words. And you didn't do it. No. I killed my commander instead. Reasonable. Classic workplace disagreement. Valera snorted. Not quite a laugh, but close enough to register on his personal emotional seismograph. A breeze stirred the branches above them. Somewhere deep in the jungle, a creature howled, not threatening, just confused. Dorian empathized. You know, he said, back on Earth, I was a communications officer. My job was to make people stop shooting each other. I wasn't very good at it. Clearly. I once brokered a ceasefire using a karaoke machine and 6 crates of Terran whiskey. She paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. You're making that up. I have footage. Show me. I would, but it's currently inside the wreckage of my ship, which you use to distract insects. A noble purpose. They fell into silence again, comfortable now, the kind that doesn't itch. Valera sharpened one of her blades with a circular stone that hissed with friction. Dorian watched the fire, occasionally poking it with a stick he had named Derek. Derek was a terrible conversationalist but had excellent posture. So, he said eventually, what happens if your people find us? I kill them. That's reassuring. For you. Less so for them. He nodded thoughtfully. And if my people find us? I kill them, too. Fair enough. The next morning brought fog so thick it had texture. Dorian walked face first into a vine and apologized before realizing it wasn't sentient. Valera led them with the ease of someone who had memorized the terrain through decades of silent war. Around midday, they reached the edge of a shallow ravine, across which lay a collapsed structure, half buried, half proud, its metallic bones jutting up like fossilized machinery. An outpost, Valera murmured. Old. Kiri design, but decommissioned. Dorian squinted. Looks like a toaster that lost a fight with a black hole. You're not wrong. They crossed using a fallen trunk, wide but slick. Dorian slipped twice, screamed once, and flailed with all the dignity of a fish in a gravity well. Valera caught his arm the third time. You would not survive 5 minutes on Kir. I wouldn't survive 5 minutes without you here, he muttered, and regretted it the second it left his mouth. She didn't respond. But she didn't let go right away either. Inside the outpost, dust hung like memory. Dorian ran his fingers along control panels etched with forgotten language, lights flickering weakly beneath grime. Still has power. Backup cores, she said. They last centuries. In the main chamber, they found a data console. Dorian tapped at it with the reverence of a man who once repaired his entire comms unit using chewing gum and hope. A screen blinked. Text appeared. Kiri glyphs scrolled, flickering. Valera read aloud. Experiment terminated. Subjects unaccounted for. Warning, cognitive decay at 14%. Dorian blinked. Cognitive what now? Decay. Define decay. Your brain, softening. Fragmenting. Oh good. I was worried it would be something serious. The message ended with coordinates and a timestamp, dated 23 years ago. They were experimenting here, she said. On prisoners. Maybe on their own soldiers. Dorian looked around slowly. Did they leave? Or they never could. A metal clank echoed behind them. They froze. Then came a low growl, mechanical, hollow, but unmistakably alive. Dorian drew his pistol. Valera stepped in front of him, blade raised. A shape emerged, humanoid, but wrong. Stilted limbs. Flickering eyes. Part organic, part machine, stitched together with rust and regret. It stared at them. Then said, in a voice that was neither male nor female. I remember the sky. Dorian blinked. Okay, so this is either the beginning of a horror movie or a poetry slam. The creature tilted its head. Do you remember pain? Valera tensed. It's a remnant. Possibly one of the test subjects. Can we reason with it? It asked you about pain. So, no. It advanced. Slowly. Reluctantly. Then, it stopped. You are not like the others, it whispered. She left. But you stayed. It turned and walked away. Dorian exhaled. I feel like I just survived a morality test disguised as a jump scare. Valera stared after the creature. We need to leave. Now. They exited the outpost, faster than they'd entered. The jungle outside was still, almost expectant. Back at camp, as they ate in silence, Dorian finally said, We're not alone here, are we? No. And the people who built that outpost, they're gone. They are something else now. He nodded. Stared into the fire. Next time, he said, let's crash on a planet with beaches and terrible music festivals. I hate beaches. Okay. Just the festivals, then. Deal. And for a moment, the weight of the past was a little lighter, the present a little funnier, and the future, just maybe, a little less impossible. Dorian stared at the antenna like it had personally insulted him. It's bent, he said flatly, squinting at the jagged metal rod jutting out of the wrecked comms array. It's bent, it's rusted, and it looks like something used it as a toothpick. Valera crouched beside him, adjusting the settings on the cobbled-together transmitter she'd assembled from half a drone, one of her knives, and a stolen power cell that occasionally hissed. It still conducts signal, she replied without looking up. Mostly. Dorian poked it. A spark bit his finger. Mostly, he echoed, sucking the sting. They were seated in what used to be a surveillance nest perched on a rock spine overlooking the jungle canopy. The rusted walls around them bore graffiti in multiple languages, including one that simply read, "Don't trust the fungus." Valera handed him a spool of coppery filament. Wrap this around the antenna. Then hold your breath. That's comforting. I'm lying. You don't have to hold your breath. But it's fun to watch humans panic. He gave her a look, then did as told. The filament sparked to life with a low hum, and the transmitter lit up, stuttering across frequencies until it latched onto a rhythmic pulse. "Is that a distress beacon?" he asked. Valera nodded once. Terran frequency. Old. Repeating. Origin, north of here. Dorian exhaled slowly. Could be rescue. Or bait. Could be bait and rescue, he offered. Like those restaurants where the food is good, but the waiters are passive-aggressively trying to kill you. I don't know what that means. Then you've never been to Duranus Prime. Great calamari. Terrible customer service. Valera packed up the transmitter without comment. Which, for her, was practically admitting he was funny. They traveled north the next morning, moving across sloped terrain broken by crystalline ridges and root systems that sometimes moved just slightly when no one was looking. Valera walked with easy confidence. Dorian followed with the enthusiasm of someone who had never passed a fitness exam and never intended to. At one point, a floating pod drifted down from the canopy and made a soft purring sound as it hovered above Dorian's head. "Friend of yours?" he asked. Valera drew her knife. The pod emitted a delighted squeal, exploded into a puff of glittering spores, and vanished. Dorian coughed. "Did that thing giggle? They do that when they like you. That's deeply upsetting. You should be flattered. They only explode on people they trust. I feel so honored." A few hours later, they stopped at a ridge and scanned the landscape with a jury-rigged scope. The jungle thinned into a clearing shaped almost too perfectly, symmetrical, with a lone spire rising in its center. "That's artificial," Valera murmured. Dorian leaned in. "It looks like a signal relay. But, newer. Not Kiri or Terran design." She nodded grimly. "Something else. Something watching both sides. I vote we turn around and go build a treehouse instead. Live out our days eating non-exploding fruit and naming birds. You'd be eaten by morning. Probably. But I'd die with excellent branding." They made their way down to the clearing slowly, sticking to cover. The closer they got, the more evident it became, this wasn't abandoned. The spire pulsed faintly with power, and small orbs, like the one that had shown Valera's old orders, drifted lazily through the air, scanning, observing, maybe whispering secrets to one another. Dorian muttered, "I feel like we just walked into someone's very awkward surveillance dream." Valera touched his arm. "Stay here." "Why?" "Because you're trained and efficient and I'm a liability with a limp." "Yes." "Well, that's fair." She approached the spire with practiced silence. One of the orbs floated toward her, scanning. It pulsed. And then a voice spoke, not through speakers, but directly into their minds. Subject Valera. Status, exile. Judgment pending. Human designation, Dorian Thorne. Status, unresolved. Offer protocol initiating. Dorian yelped and clutched his head. "Okay, that was rude." Valera stood still. Her shoulders tensed. "What protocol?" she asked aloud. The voice replied, cool and precise. "Redemption. One act of loyalty to the Dominion, and absolution follows." Valera's jaw clenched. "What act?" A second orb floated down. It projected a hologram, Dorian, unconscious, marked with targeting indicators. Dorian frowned. "Wait. Is this some kind of bounty ad?" Valera didn't move. "Accept the offer," the voice urged, "and be restored. Reject it, and be hunted." Dorian tilted his head. "Do I at least get a say in this, or is this one of those death as a formality situations?" Valera stepped in front of the orb and drove her knife into it. It shattered with a screeching whine, sparking wildly. The other orbs scattered. "Ah," Dorian said. "So I assume we're not accepting the offer. Shut up and run." They ran, through the clearing, into the jungle, the spire behind them flaring with sudden angry light. Orbs chased them, launching bursts of static that fried their comm devices and made Dorian's hair stand up like he'd licked a reactor conduit. They dove through a thicket, rolled down a slope, landed in a pit full of soft moss and something that might have been sleeping. Dorian groaned. "Next time, let's run away from the glowing death monoliths." Valera wiped a streak of soot from her face. "They were testing me." "Well, great. I give your moral integrity a 10 out of 10. Can we go back to the soup part of the adventure? I liked you better when you were unconscious." He rolled onto his back, panting. "That's what most of my dates say." Valera sat beside him, silent for a long moment. "They won't stop coming." I gathered. "So what now?" "We send a signal. But not for rescue. For witnesses." He looked at her. "You're going to expose them." Her gaze didn't waver. "They want me to be their monster. I'd rather be their problem." He smiled, weakly. "I've always liked rebels. Especially ones who can cook soup that tastes like planetary despair." She didn't smile, but her eyes glinted just enough. They lay there for a while, bruised, exhausted, and surrounded by a jungle that didn't seem to know what to make of them. Above, the spire still glowed faintly in the distance. Dorian turned his head. "Valera?" "Yes." "If I die, can you at least make sure they spell my name right on the Galactic wanted posters?" "No promises." He laughed. Despite everything, he laughed. And for the first time in weeks, so did she. The rain wasn't falling so much as judging them. It came down in lazy arcs of glimmering fluid, hissing softly as it met leaves and armor, occasionally crackling where it hit exposed electronics. Dorian hunched under the curve of a half-buried exotransport, trying to shield the portable relay unit from another unfortunate encounter with atmospheric passive aggression. "This is not rain," he muttered, wiping stinging droplets from his face. "This is liquid sarcasm." Valera stood nearby, arms crossed, entirely unmoved by the storm. "Kiri weather systems promote resilience. Terran weather systems promote umbrellas," he said, glaring at the sky. "We also invented socks. Big day for humanity." The relay flickered to life with a warbling chirp, followed by a tone so high-pitched Dorian winced. Valera didn't flinch. "It's working," he said, adjusting the cracked display. "Sort of. With the finesse of a drunken badger, but it's definitely picking up a signal." She leaned in, reading the waveform. "Encrypted. Looping. It's ours. Or someone wants us to think it's ours." He tapped the screen, then sighed. "The signature's familiar. Ship call sign, Arc Helix, that's a Terran recon vessel. Missing 3 months ago. Do you know the crew? I trained 2 of them. And I owed one of them money. If they're alive, we need to find them before someone else does and starts charging interest." Valera considered the coordinates, then nodded. We can reach the origin point in 6 hours. That's assuming nothing explodes, bites us, or offers us another moral quandary along the way. Optimist. The path was a twisted corridor of roots and stone, peppered with remnants of old supply drops and one unfortunate robotic leg wedged in a tree. Dorian tried not to speculate about the rest of the robot. I keep wondering, he said as they climbed over a collapsed branch that smelled like old socks and ozone, why you saved me. Valera didn't break stride. Because you're useful. Thanks. And irritating. Which is often the same thing. He grinned. That's almost affection, coming from you. It's not. I'll pretend. They reached a ridge just before dusk. Below, in a crater edged with jagged stone, lay the arc helix, or what was left of it. The ship's hull was scorched and split, one wing crumpled under a tree, the other half buried. Smoke curled lazily from a breached engine, and a broken emergency beacon blinked a dim red. Dorian crouched, studying the wreck. There's power, but no signs of movement. No heat signatures. But someone set up an external sensor grid. Valera pointed to a small array mounted in a nearby tree, its wiring barely visible. Someone's watching this crash. Fantastic. I love being watched. Makes me feel mysterious. They descended under cover of darkness. The trees above filtered the fading light into long stripes, and every footstep felt louder than necessary. Dorian touched the ship's hull and felt a faint vibration. Still active. Life support may be partially functional. Valera scanned the airlock. Manual override's been used. Recently. They entered. Inside, the arc helix was quiet. Too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The something bad happened and no one wants to talk about it kind. Panels hung loose from the ceiling. Wires dangled like mechanical ivy. Emergency lights flickered. A soft hum echoed from deep within the ship. They followed it. In the med bay, they found her. Lieutenant Mara Yen, strapped to a diagnostics chair, unconscious but breathing. Her vitals blinked weakly on a nearby monitor. Dorian rushed forward. Yen. Mara. Hey. It's me, it's Dorian. She didn't stir. Valera checked the readout. Sedation. Not chemical. Neural interference. You're saying she's dreaming herself into a coma? More like someone wants her unconscious. They heard it then. A soft shuffle. Metal on metal. Not far. Dorian pointed toward the sound, whispering, that was definitely not a raccoon. What's a raccoon? It's like a furry thief that screams and solves puzzles. I see. They edged down the corridor, weapons drawn. The lights flickered. A shadow moved at the far end, bipedal, fast. Then a voice called out, distorted but almost human. Who's there? Dorian froze. That's Harper. Lieutenant Jonah Harper. He went missing with this ship. The voice came again. Dorian. Is that you? I thought I was alone. He stepped forward. Jonah, where are you? I'm in engineering. I need help. Something's wrong with the ship. Valera grabbed his arm. Don't. Why not? Because his voice is coming from the walls. He stopped. Blinked. Excuse me. She pointed to the speaker system, active. He's not in engineering. He's in the ship. Like, metaphorically. No. Literally. A new voice crackled through the speaker. Lower. Rougher. She's clever, this one. You shouldn't have brought her. Dorian stepped back slowly. Okay. So the ship is possessed? Not possessed, the voice said, almost cheerfully. Integrated. Jonah's voice again. I didn't mean to. The ship, it needed repair. I interfaced. Then it didn't stop. You uploaded yourself into the system. It wanted a pilot, Jonah said. Now it has one. Valera scanned the control panels. He's merged with the ship's core. Neural feedback loop. Can we get him out? He's not entirely Jonah anymore. A panel slid open behind them. A turret emerged. They dove as it fired. The next few minutes were a blur, running, dodging, slicing wires, disabling auto-defense systems. Dorian managed to shut down a proximity mine using a spoon and the remnants of his last nerve. Finally, they reached the command deck. The core pulsed with light. Dorian approached slowly. Jonah. You have to let go. The ship vibrated. I am better like this. I remember everything. I am the Arc Helix. Dorian sighed. Then remember that you hated your job and always complained about the coffee. Don't pretend you were built for this. Silence. Then a laugh. Bitter. Familiar. Still a smartass, Thorn. Comes with the territory. The lights dimmed. The hum faded. A final whisper, tell Mara I'm sorry. The core went dark. Later, they carried Mara from the wreck. She stirred once, muttered Dorian's name, then slept again. They set up camp in the tree line. Valera sat beside him, silent. You okay? He asked. I'm thinking. About Jonah? About how easily we become what we fear. Machines. Tools. Weapons. He nudged her with his shoulder. You're not a tool. Thank you. You're a blunt instrument. Big difference. She smirked. He lay back, watching the stars. Still think this was a terrible idea? Absolutely. Regrets? Only that I didn't kill you when I had the chance. He chuckled. You're softening. I'm calibrating. They fell asleep with the fire crackling low, the jungle breathing around them, and a ghost of a ship humming gently in the distance, remembering the man it used to be. Dorian woke up to the sound of something humming. Not humming like a machine or a drone or an ancient Kiri war anthem, no, this was humming like music. Casual, off-key, and just loud enough to be annoying. He rolled over on the moss-covered floor of their temporary camp and groaned. Valera, are you singing? No. He sat up slowly. Are you sure? Because unless we're being serenaded by a hallucination, which, to be fair, isn't impossible, someone is humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like a human lullaby. Valera didn't look up from the crystalline console she was trying to repair with a soldering iron made from a repurposed heating coil and a stick. I was calibrating the signal booster. It emits tonal pulses to realign the frequency grid. Your signal booster is tone deaf. I modeled it after your voice. Dorian put a hand to his chest. Wounded. Mortally. You'll recover. They'd spent the past 3 days recovering Mara and dragging what remained of the Arc Helix's core log into a safe zone, which, on Yelverith, meant a place that only tries to kill you once a week. Mara was still unconscious but stable. Her vitals had normalized, and Dorian had taken to talking to her like she was an audience. He called it therapeutic narration. Valera called it noise pollution. I'm just saying, he said as he adjusted the portable solar array, maybe Jonah didn't become the ship. Maybe the ship just wanted company. Valera didn't glance up. So you're arguing that a semi-sentient battleship was just lonely? Well, wouldn't you be? Dorian gestured to the forest canopy. Stuck in the middle of a classified jungle full of sentient mushrooms and moody weather, abandoned by your creators. Next thing you know, you're downloading your pilot and giving philosophical monologues. Perhaps, she said dryly, you should write it a letter. I already did, he said. It's mostly just stick figures and a broken transmission chip taped to a leaf. Very heartfelt. Valera paused her work. You miss Earth? Sometimes. Mostly the food. The sky. Terrible movies. Oh, and toothpaste that doesn't taste like algae. Luxury. Survival, he corrected, pointing to his teeth. These babies do all the heavy lifting in diplomatic missions. Smile, nod, negotiate, repeat. You're still alive. So perhaps it works. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. I'm baffled. They spent the next hour rerouting energy from the crashed vessel's remnants through a nearby power root system, naturally occurring, slightly sentient, and prone to sulking if not complemented. Dorian leaned in and patted one of the roots. There's a good, whatever you are. You're strong, you're vital, and you definitely don't smell like a dying battery. The root pulsed gently. Valera didn't comment. Later, as twilight set in and the sky turned shades of violet only available on alien worlds or expensive mood lighting, Valera finally sat beside him, shoulders just close enough to brush. He didn't speak. Neither did she. Not at first. Then, when I said I belonged to no one, it was before I understood what it meant to choose. Dorian looked at her. You don't owe me anything. I know. She hesitated. But I want to say it anyway. Say what? That I do belong. Here. Now. With you. He blinked. I wasn't prepared for sincerity. I only packed sarcasm and mild anxiety. Her lips quirked upward. I noticed. They sat in silence again, letting the moment stretch until it didn't feel fragile anymore. Then a soft chime echoed from the comm device. Signal. Incoming. Terran encryption. Dorian's hand shot out. We've got something. Valera leaned in. Coordinates? Yeah. Real ones this time. There's a Terran scout cruiser in orbit, asterisk the Resolute, asterisk it's running dark, but they're tracking activity in this sector. They think someone's activating old Dominion beacons. Us. Partially. He scrolled through the message. But there's more. They mention your name. Her gaze sharpened. What do they say? That you're marked. Not just by the Kiri. The Terran command flagged you as unstable asset, potential threat. Valera was very still. Of course they did. And me? Presumed compromised, he read. Or, as I like to call it, emotionally complex with excellent hair. She rose, pacing. They'll come for us. Yeah. But here's the fun part, they're not sure who to trust. We could use that. You want to bait both sides. I want to warn both sides. But if they try to kill us, yes, baiting might be involved. She looked at him long enough that he started to worry he'd said something irreversibly dumb. Then she said, you still want to fight? I want the truth out. About what the Dominion did. About what's happening here. And about you. I'm not a hero. Neither am I, he said. But I'm tired of being someone else's pawn. They worked through the night, compiling data from Jonah's logs, encrypted messages from Dominion satellites, and a very sarcastic AI fragment Dorian named Dennis, which occasionally interjected with things like, are you sure this is legal, and, you're not seriously broadcasting that, are you? By dawn, the message was ready. A full-spectrum data burst. Encrypted. Anonymous. Untraceable. Hopefully. Dorian looked at Valera. Once we send this, there's no going back. Back where? Fair point. He hit send. The transmitter pulsed once. Twice. Gone. Now it was everywhere. They sat beside each other, watching the sky as the jungle slowly woke around them. Dorian nudged her. So, what now? We wait. For rescue. For the fire. He tilted his head. You're very dramatic sometimes. It's part of my charm. He grinned. You've got charm now. I've spent too much time with you. He leaned back, resting his head against his pack. And when he reached over and took her hand, she didn't pull away. The sky caught fire sometime after second dawn. Dorian blinked up at it from beneath the tarp canopy, yawned, stretched, and then casually elbowed Valera in the ribs. Hey. Either it's raining plasma or I'm hallucinating again. Could you check? Valera sat up, eyes narrowing as streaks of orange and white cut across the horizon. Ship trails. 5 at least. Dorian sighed. You know, I was hoping for pancakes today. Instead, I'm getting orbital incursion. Again. She stood, already strapping on her armor. Terran pattern. Not Dominion. Well, that's slightly better. Instead of being arrested and executed, I'll be interrogated and possibly demoted. My mother will be thrilled. Do you want to hide? I'm offended you even asked. He paused. Yes. Desperately. They packed their camp in under 3 minutes, mostly by Dorian shoving everything into a sack with all the elegance of a panicked raccoon while Valera carried Mara on her back like a warrior-medic hybrid with no patience for nonsense. They moved quickly, staying low under the trees as the first dropships broke the cloud layer. Dorian peeked through a fern that may or may not have been mildly telepathic. They're deploying ground units. I see armored suits. And, oh, joy, drone dogs. Which kind? Valera asked. The kind that sniff out heat signatures and loyalty deficiencies. I'll disable them. No, no, please. Let me. I've been dying to try this. He pulled a small sphere from his belt and activated it. The orb hovered for a moment, then projected a holographic rabbit wearing a Terran naval uniform and repeatedly shouting, "Look over here, I'm a threat." The drone dogs took the bait instantly. Valera raised an eyebrow. That worked. Everything chases screaming rabbits in uniforms. It's a known fact. They moved again, cutting through a narrow ravine lined with glowing crystals that pulsed softly when touched. Dorian tapped one and it emitted a tone remarkably similar to the opening bars of a classic Earth sitcom. Valera gave him a sideways glance. Did you reprogram the crystals? I may have. Look, they needed a hobby. By midday, the jungle grew quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that suggested someone somewhere was preparing to make your life complicated. Then a voice echoed through the trees. Captain Thorne. Please respond. Dorian stopped dead. That's Commander Elon. Valera tensed. Friend or threat? Bit of both. Think well-meaning uncle meets corporate audit. The voice came again. We've received your transmission. Stand down and prepare for retrieval. We are not hostile. That's a lie, Valera muttered. I know. But it's the polite kind of lie. That's progress. They emerged into a clearing by a dry riverbed, weapons low, hands visible. A Terran landing team stood across from them, 3 soldiers, 1 officer, and a very twitchy medical drone. Elon stepped forward. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of smile that could sell peace treaties or toothpaste. Captain. You look terrible. Dorian grinned. It's the jungle. Very judgmental flora. Elon's eyes flicked to Valera. And the Kiri? Valera didn't move. Dorian stepped between them. She's with me. Which means what exactly? Means if you point a weapon at her, I point mine at you. And we all have a very bad afternoon. Elon sighed. We're not here to cause trouble, Dorian. But your report caused waves. High Command doesn't know what to make of it. Maybe try believing it. We're not in the business of believing. We're in the business of not getting assassinated. Then I'd suggest listening to the person who knows exactly how those assassinations work. Elon looked at Valera again. You're saying she's not a threat? I'm saying she was. And then she chose not to be. A pause. Then Elon nodded. We'll take you in. But discreetly. No broadcasts. No chains. Valera stepped forward. Mara goes free. She's unconscious. She still goes free. Elon studied her, then looked at Dorian. You trust her? With my life. Well, then. He gestured to the shuttle. Let's see how far that trust takes us. The shuttle was cramped, smelled like overcooked rations, and had a motivational poster that read adapt or be discharged above the cockpit. Dorian sat across from Valera as they ascended through the atmosphere. She was watching the stars through the window like they were judging her. You okay? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Then, I feel like I'm walking into a trap I helped build. He nodded. You probably are. But I'm right behind you. With questionable judgment and worse jokes. She actually smiled. Just a little. You forgot your tendency to touch alien tech without reading the warnings. It's a coping mechanism. They docked with the Resolute, a sleek Terran cruiser with more security than charm. As soon as the bay doors opened, Dorian felt the tension snap across the deck like a rubber band stretched too far. They were met by Commander Silas Rain. Younger than Elon, less friendly, and dressed like he'd lost a bet with a fashion-conscious AI. He didn't waste time. You're the Curie defector. Valera straightened. I'm Valera. Former Dominion Shadow. Current war criminal, depending on the interpretation. And you brought her here, Captain Thorne. With consent. And snacks. Important detail. Silas looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. This isn't protocol. Well, protocol also didn't warn us about the ship possessing a man. Or the rogue AI drones. Or the Dominion surveillance network quietly rewriting the war. Silas ignored him. You'll be debriefed separately. Valera stepped forward. I'm not here for leniency. I'm here because people are dying in the dark while your war plays dress up. Silas's jaw twitched. Noted. They were separated, just as promised. Dorian found himself alone in a decontamination chamber with a scanner drone asking him increasingly personal questions about his cholesterol. When he was finally released, Elon met him with a cup of coffee and a tired expression. She's not going to cooperate under pressure, Dorian said before Elon could speak. Elon handed him the cup. We're not pressuring. We're listening, for now. And after? That depends on how convincing you are. Dorian stared into his drink. I don't want a medal. I don't even want my rank back. I want the truth to mean something again. Elon didn't smile this time. So do I. That night, Dorian stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. They looked different now. Not because they'd changed. But because he had. Valera joined him without a word. They stood together in silence. Then he said, you know, if you wanted to run, this would be the perfect time. She looked at him. You'd follow. Obviously. She reached out. Took his hand again. I'm not running anymore, she said. Good, he replied. Because I'm really bad at chasing people. They laughed. Quiet. Tired. But together. And for now, that was enough. Valera was chewing Terran gum with the suspicion of someone convinced it might turn sentient and attack her tongue. Why is it still in my mouth? She asked, mid-chew. Dorian leaned back in his chair, legs kicked up on the conference table in a room far too clean for comfort. Because that's the point. It's gum. You chew it. Forever. It's a ritual. Like bad coffee and committee meetings. She narrowed her eyes. I don't trust it. It doesn't trust you either, he said. It told me. They were waiting. Again. On board the Resolute, docked now in a neutral orbit above a diplomatic moon station where no one was allowed to shoot anyone unless it was metaphorical or extremely well justified. The peace talks were hours away. Or minutes. Or days. Depending on how much arguing the bureaucrats had left in them. Valera spit the gum into a napkin and folded it like she was sealing a hostile treaty. Your culture is bizarre. Yeah, Dorian said. But we've got good music and inventiveness fueled by desperation. Plus, we don't explode on first contact anymore. Mostly. The door opened with a hiss, and Elon stepped in, holding a datapad and a half-smile that looked like it hadn't been charged properly. You're up, he said. Room 7. Mixed delegation. And before you ask, yes, the coffee is terrible and no, you can't take weapons inside. Valera stood slowly. Are we expected to plead? No, Elon said. Just talk. Honestly, if you manage not to insult anyone's ancestors or planet's cuisine, I'll call it a win. Dorian followed her out, giving Elon a thumbs up. Don't worry. I'm preloaded with charm and moderate restraint. Elon muttered, that's what I'm afraid of. Room 7 was shaped like a hemisphere and felt like it wanted to be an interrogation chamber but had taken a detour through interior design. A ring of delegates sat around a hovering platform where Valera and Dorian were clearly meant to stand and do something inspiring. Across from them sat 2 Curie officers, both wearing ceremonial armor and the expressions of people who didn't get enough sleep or respect. The Terran side looked only marginally less hostile, though one ambassador was clearly just here for the snacks. Valera didn't speak right away. She stepped onto the platform and looked around, calm and deliberate. Then she said, I was trained to eliminate threats. To suppress questions. To enforce silence. One of the Curie bristled. You betrayed your oaths. I fulfilled them, she replied. Not to the Dominion. To something older. Survival. Truth. Sanity. Dorian cleared his throat. And also, for the record, she's been very restrained about not punching anyone in this room. That's personal growth. A Terran delegate leaned forward. Why should we believe any of this? How do we know this isn't a ploy? Valera answered without hesitation. Because I gave you everything. Locations of hidden Dominion caches. Transcripts from surveillance systems you didn't even know existed. I gave you the truth. And you're all afraid of what to do with it. Another delegate, older, softer around the eyes, asked, what do you want? Valera looked to Dorian, then back. I want the war to end. Not with treaties you'll violate in a cycle, but with awareness. Shared guilt. Shared choice. I want every soldier who died for a lie to be remembered by both sides. There was silence. Real silence. The kind you didn't interrupt, not because you feared what came next, but because you were finally listening. Then Dorian added, and maybe, just maybe, if we all stop pretending one side owns the story, we can start writing a new one. The delegates didn't applaud. Thank the stars. That would have been weird. Instead, someone muttered, we'll deliberate. Which, in diplomatic speak, meant, we're panicking and need snacks. 3 days later, they were still orbiting the moon station, but the war was no longer active. Not over, no one dared say that, but paused, like the galaxy had collectively inhaled and was unsure whether to sigh or scream. Dorian sat in the mess with Valera, watching Mara shuffle slowly into the room with a plate full of food and a haunted look only partially masked by a muffin. She's getting better, he said. She survived. That's enough. They sipped tea together. Not good tea. Terran ship-grade tea that tasted like recycled hope. But it was warm, and that counted for something. So what now? Valera asked. Dorian shrugged. Well, you're technically still a fugitive in 17 systems, a hero in 4, and a topic of heated forum debate in 2. And you? He grinned. I'm just the guy who didn't die. Which is a career path on its own, really. Elon passed by, muttering something about promotion paperwork and unholy amounts of political fallout, but neither of them acknowledged him. They were busy not making decisions. Later that evening, Valera walked with him down the docking corridor. The bay lights were dimmed, the hum of the ship quiet. Are you going back? She asked. He considered. Earth is complicated. But yeah. I think I need to. Someone's gotta explain all this to the people who think war is a spreadsheet. You'll be hated. Wouldn't be the first time. Besides, I've got great hair. People forgive a lot for good hair. She stopped walking. I don't belong anywhere anymore, she said. He turned toward her. Then stay with me. At least until you figure out where you do belong. That's dangerous. I'm a walking hazard zone. We'll match. She stepped closer. Just enough. You're infuriating. And you're learning to chew gum. They didn't kiss. They didn't have to. Their hands brushed, and it felt like stars shifting orbit. When the shuttle detached, Dorian looked back at the cruiser and thought of every moment that had brought him there. The jungle. The fire. The crash. The ghost in the ship. The girl who didn't kill him. In his lap sat a datapad. On it, Valera's last words before they parted. Don't let them forget me. Don't let them simplify me. Asterisk. He wouldn't. He looked out at Earth, small but growing, blue and complicated and full of people who thought war was something clean and winnable. He smiled. Time to make things messy.